Thank you for joining us today and welcome to the 40th session of Majlis Khonji. Please allow me to introduce our guest for this session, Mr. Mostert, CEO and founder of Weteq Luxembourg and Mosmart Investment SA. Andre holds an honors degree in economics from the University of Johannesburg. He completed a World Bond Market course in Oxford and completed the Johannesburg Stock Exchange member exams at Wits University. He has vast experience in the investment markets, having traded as a senior manager in bonds, futures, options, and equity markets from Eskom, Nedcor, and other institutions for over 15 years. He is the CEO and managing director of both Mosmart South Africa and Weteq. He serves as a director on the award-winning water purification company, Aeroponic, also based in Luxembourg. He is a strategic thinker with financially sound skills. He realized the importance of adopting new intellectual property and technology, along with new discoveries in water purification, and wrapped them in a synergistic manner to form Mosmart Investments. He has taken the leading role in the pioneering work to the Mosmart and Weteq group of companies have done in the food security field. The group have engaged and secured relationship with various other service providers to ensure a holistic approach to growing food, from optimizing irrigation at scale, including growing food in any environment by enhancing hydroponics, aeroponics, as well as the inclusion of the effective use of carbon dioxide using a carbon neutral footprint. Welcome, Mr. Andre, and I would also like to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Kamis Al-Kiyumi, in moderating this session today with us. Welcome, Your Excellency. Over to you, and Mr. Andre to start the presentation after. His Excellency.
Well, thank you very much for this interesting introduction. I also would like to welcome Mr. Andre for this morning session. With a group of businessmen in Oman. So far, the topics are very, very interesting, especially post-corona. We are talking about water purification, and we are talking about hydroponic, vertical hydroponic, which can enhance the production capacity in a very high way. Post-corona, people will be very cautious regarding what they eat, what they drink. And in water purification, water after contamination, it needs to be purified. And Mr. Andre have very good approach to this one, which he suggests that dealing with that is very simple, it's not complicated. So today, we are welcoming you, Mr. Andre, to our session, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and distinguished guests. Thank you really for allowing me this opportunity. I really appreciate your time, and I sincerely hope you're going to enjoy our presentation. I am not an engineer or a scientist. I'll try and keep it as interesting as possible. And without further ado, then I will just get the screen share going so that I can start. So my presentation today has got the heading of Transformation of Food Security and Farming through innovation in water treatments. I think as I go with the presentation, I will demonstrate how water has actually changed from 2,000 years ago to today, and what needs to be done, and technologies available to again allow specifically, not just in agriculture, but for water to be put back to the state that it was a long time ago. Our agenda today, I've just got to move my screen a little bit, if you pardon me, is just a very quick brief on current Weteq water treatment technologies, the effect we have on dust control and effluent treatment. Very important for us today also is near future Weteq water treatment technologies, which I think is critical specifically, as is actually mentioned, for moving forward into the future and past COVID. There is a certain amount of micropollutants that is busy building up in water resources on a global scale that currently can't be removed effectively and economically. We have made certain breakthroughs in our very latest technology, and I would love to present that to you. And then the effects of our treated water and the impact specifically, very briefly, on firefighting, but then mainly the focus on agriculture. And we'll give a specific focus on stunning results being achieved with CO2 technology and the impact on that in the agricultural field. And then more specific, not just to your region, but also to the world, is specifically starting to focus on containerized farming, and then world-leading vertical hydroponics, where we'll do a live crossing to my friend Jacques van Buren in Texas in the USA. So water is vital for all known forms of life, even though it provides no calories or no organic nutrients. It's just amazing to think that there is actually nothing in water, but it is the most critical thing on the planet. Some amazing facts that I just gathered on water, which was actually mind-boggling for me when I read it the first time, which I would like to share with you guys. 6,800 gallons of water is required to grow a day's food for a family of 4. It's actually a mind-boggling stat to think that a family of 4 needs 6,800 liters of clean water per day. Less than 1% of the water on the earth can be used as drinking water, and then 780 million people lack access to safe water. 80% of all illnesses in the developing world is water related. Then the scary one, 200 children gets killed by unsafe water every hour on this planet. And it's not being declared a pandemic as yet. You know, for me, that is just a scary stat. Agriculture accounts for 70% of global freshwater withdrawals, 90% in some fast-growing economies. Water usage has grown at more than twice the rate of the population increase in the last century. As the world is busy developing, the need for water just gets higher and higher. I can't see this slowing down. I can actually just see this increasing even at a more rapid pace. And then 2/3 of the world's population is projected to face water scarcity by 2025. That is literally around the corner. It's 4 or 5 years away. And then 1/3 of what the world currently spends on bottled water in 1 year could pay for all the projects providing for safe water to everyone in need. That's actually also a very, very scary thought, to think that just 1/3 of what we currently spend on bottled water would actually be sufficient to provide safe water for everybody on the planet. And then critically, where I believe Weteq can make a very big contribution, is 12,000 different toxic chemical compounds in industrial use today. Most of these somehow end up in our water, and the moment these are on a micro scale or micropollutant scale, as they would call it, there is no process currently in the world that can actually take this out. And more than 500 new chemicals are developed each and every year. That also lands up in our water. Briefly go on to Weteq's technology. My whole background has always been on the financial markets, stock exchange. It was a fast-packed life with a lot of action and a lot of adrenaline. And at some stage, I decided I need to build something more sustainable. And funny enough, my granddad always said, listen, if you ever want to know what would be critically important in the world going future, it will be water. And he reckoned the Third World War would still be about water. So that always stuck in my mind. And when I started looking for alternatives to what I was doing, I thought to invest maybe in technologies that would have an impact on not just the environment, but on life of the people that will follow us, and how we can actually make differences to this planet. So we started as a company looking specifically at environmental impact, and it pretty soon became obvious that water was the key. Water was the thing that would actually be critical in all of these environmental issues in some form and so forth. So we were very lucky that we stumbled upon a product developed in South Africa specifically. It took quite a couple of years for the inventor, almost 11 years. He had a very, very special kind of brain, somebody that just never gave up. And it took him 11 years to get the recipe right for a very specific surfactant that would alter the properties of water. And the moment he could alter the properties of water, he could actually get that water to perform better. And we were lucky enough to be able to invest into that. It can be classified as an anionic surfactant. It is very, very environmentally friendly, and at the recommended dosages, completely non-toxic. The main difference between what we invested in is our product contains no toxic elements, no solvents, no ammonia, no glycol, no alcohol, no oil, and no petrochemicals. And in the presentation, I would love to demonstrate to you the effect that we have on water and then the subsequent applications. So in our portfolio...
Sorry, Andre, what's a surfactant?
A surfactant is a group name because it's a group name of something that you add to water to manipulate specifically the water. So for a lack of a better word, because we believe we've got something quite unique, you know, we had to describe it, and the best way to describe it was to put it, you know, in the category, you know, as a surfactant. So obviously, the moment you start manipulating water, you realize that water gets used absolutely everywhere. So sometimes when I do presentations, you know, a lot of people would say, but wow, it looks like you guys are involved in so many things, you know, you should focus more. I want to make it very, very clear that we focus on one primary thing, and that is to make water work better. The fact that water gets used in all kinds of different applications, you know, that is just a result of what we are doing. And everywhere, once we have treated the water that people use in a process, they find application for this. So for us, the low-hanging fruit initially was dust control and alternative gravel roads. I'll show a little bit about that. I'll show some industrial effluent water treatment, bottle washing that we're currently doing huge trials with, wastewater treatment, firefighting, and then the main topic for today is agriculture. But I just thought, you know, with such a wonderful audience, you know, I just had to take the opportunity to show just a little bit more of what we do than to focus just on one thing. So I'm first of all going to show two quick videos. So typically what we have here in South Africa with the mines is they allow these mines certain sizes of effluent ponds. And these guys at the moment rely on evaporation in order, you know, to have capacity in their effluent ponds. So in order to speed up the evaporation, they typically install a spray system in the middle of the effluent pond or the effluent dam. They throw the water up into the air and they hope for that water to evaporate faster that way. So on the first video, it is just the system as is. And in the second video, we are going to dose our product in at 0.01%. So literally at 100 parts per million, a very, very, very small dosage of our product in the second video. I specifically want you to listen to the sound that the water makes through the system. You'll hear the harshness and the hardness of the water going through the system, and try and focus on the droplet size, physically the water going up in the air and then dropping back. And then on the second video, you will see what our product does to the properties of the water. And once you can see what we do to the water, I think everything will become crystal clear as to how we typically manipulate this water. So I hope you can hear this. But as you can see, yeah, as you can see now, you can literally almost see the water droplets going up, and you can almost see them coming down. We're now going to start treating that water, listen to the sound, and see what happens to this whole pond. As you can see, the water droplets is now becoming a mist. So it's a complete mist. Pardon me for the sound over there, but it's a complete mist. And we have broken down the surface tension of the water droplets. We have also now broken the intermolecular forces of the actual water molecules. So as you can see, by manipulating those water molecules, we now create an ultra fine mist. And the moment we manage to do that, you can now do a lot more with the same amount of water. You've got a much better wetting ability. You can actually put stuff into the water much better. You can, specifically in orchards and in agriculture, you can wet things better. We get, with smaller water molecules, we get better penetration. As you will see with normal water, you get a very small penetration. With our product in the water, you get a much deeper penetration. So typically in road building now for us, in alternative road building, it's much easier. We get better penetration and compaction. And I quickly want to show also the emulsion capabilities. Because we were involved with John Preston at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, when the big oil spill was on in the Gulf, the BP oil spill, they were looking for alternatives to contain the spill. And I was bumped up and I had to go and demonstrate our product in New Orleans, specifically where we collected some of the crude that was spilling out into the ocean, and we suggested alternative treatment methods.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. This is now not playing in full screen. Let's just hope you guys can still see it. So
that's probably good. Yeah. No. Here's a tank that'll have a little oil with no M3. We don't want too much. That's probably good. That's good. That's a similar amount. In the beginning. Okay, we're going to agitate about 10 minutes to simulate wave motion. Oh, wow.
That's pretty amazing.
The left has
over
M3.
here. It looks like you're favoring that quite honestly.
Here, you want me to do it? Am I right here?
That's the difference. On
Yeah.
the right hand side, you get regular water from Lake Pontchartrain. You can see what it looks like, and you can see the crude broken up and suspended, starting to emulsify.
Okay, the one on the right is without. Reverse. With M3, without M3.
Good. Move your hands together like that. Okay. Kind of move your fingers together. It's like trying to rub your fingers together like you're doing. There you go. That's
This
nice
is a test right here. Yeah, our 45 minutes. Let me see your hand.
there we go. Just to mention, John Preston was the guy at MIT that evaluated all new technologies that was developed at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and his main job was to evaluate new developments and then commercialize that. And he, of course, was an advisor to various presidents and so forth. One of the ideas that is put in our mind that we've never ever tried, and I think at some stage maybe should be tested, is where he specifically mentioned that there is a lot of oil wells specifically in Texas, that's starting to run dry, but there could still be a lot of oil in those wells in the form of a thicker slurry or in the crevices or and so forth. And, you know, people are trying to pump water in to lift the oil out. The moment you obviously now treat the water with our surfactant, he reckoned it could be $1 billion or even bigger opportunity if you could really get that water to lift the oil out much easier so that you can then pump it out and recover it again afterwards. You know, so I just thought I'd mention that, seeing that I am in oil country at the moment. So pardon me for that. Just to focus quickly on the effect that our product has specifically on dust control, micron sizes of dust. As you will see there on the apologies for that, it's just jumping a little bit. If you look at a typical misting capturing ability of water, and on my table that I've got there, you will see with normal water under a low pressure and a high pressure system, and you look at smoke and dust and specific particle sizes of smoke and dust. Let's just look at the top one. Synthetic smoke, for instance, has got a particle sizes between 1 to 50 micron. Low pressure water or high pressure water has got a capability to capture those particles from between 15 to 50 micron. The moment you treat that water with our surfactant, because you've now got an ultra fine mist, that is, as I have demonstrated in the previous video, you can actually, under a simple low pressure system, now capture dust particles or smoke particles from 0.1 to 350 micron. The whole range you can actually capture in a very simple misting system, very simple thing. I will quickly just demonstrate. This is a plant where they do crushing, and you will see it creates a lot of dust. There's our guy. He is, I think I must switch my volume a bit softer. He's going to switch on the system, and all that we've done is we have installed 6 micro misters inside the crusher itself, and he's now going to switch that on. So we create, oh my goodness guys, I must apologize for this jumping all over the show. All of the dust effectively gets created there in the crusher, but it contaminates, of course, this whole area. Apologies for the length of the video. It takes about 3 minutes. But you will very quickly see how that dust get completely controlled, and where previously in there you can still not even see what is going on behind the installation. It will become very clear now how quickly this just captures absolutely all of this. And once again, you could not do this with just normal water. You had to treat the water to be able to do that. More importantly, all of the really harmful dust is literally dust that's got particle sizes smaller than 7 micron, and anything smaller than 7 micron you cannot see with the human eye. So the video is wonderful to look at, but the critical stuff that's actually really happening you cannot even see with the human eye, and that is particle sizes of between 0.1 to 7 micron that is also now being completely captured and controlled. And what we do is just give enough moisture in the crusher to create what we call a dustless powder. So it is not a overspray of water, no water wastage. We do not create a mud. As you can see, there's no excess water flowing out. It is literally just enough of that mist to capture all of the dust being created, and then the whole knock-on effect onto the rest of the environment in a very quick space of time. As you can see there, this last little bit of dust now being blown away by the wind, but no more new dust being generated. As you will now notice, you're starting to see other installations. This whole thing is becoming crystal clear, and you literally get to a point where it's not even necessary to wear masks or personal protection anymore, because we have just completely controlled all of the visible as well as the invisible dust in this specific scenario. There we go. I'm just going to cut this a bit short to save time. Just a couple of photographs of what we're busy with in terms of alternative roads. We operate mainly on the mines, creating not tar. This is not tar. This is polymer roads, most of them. But as you can see, we get proper penetration, and we're starting to do a lot of these alternative roads, specifically in Africa, where it's critically needed. It comes in at about a quarter of the cost of a typical tar road here in South Africa, and we do it in situ with in situ material, so we do it very fast. Moving on to water treatment, the evolution in water treatment technology. So I'm just moving away from the actual capturing of all kinds of things into water, now more because I've demonstrated how we can actually capture oil into water or emulsify it. We can capture dust into water, and pretty soon our client said, but you've now got all of this dirt and all of these things in the water. We need you to clean the water for us, because what do we do with all this dirty water? And that is how the company started evolving into water treatment technologies. So pre-19s, there was microfiltration and ultrafiltration when reverse osmosis came to the fore. And then pretty soon after that, coagulation and flocculation, where people were pre-treating the water before microfiltration. And then in the 2000s, early 2000s, microbial bioreactors were introduced, and then a combination of the previous three, and then obviously now a combination of absolutely everything. And this is specifically where we have now made a very nice breakthrough, is in what I believe will be near future treatment. It will have to come, and that is in advanced oxidation processes, which I will discuss a little bit more. But just very quickly back to our flocculation primary treatment of effluent water, industrial wastewater, sewage treatment water, and so forth. Essentially what happens is, if you add flocculants to water, those flocculants tend to operate as long carbon chains. They will then grab onto impurities in your water. Critical mass will form, and that will then drop to the bottom, and you will sit with relatively clean water on top, or sometimes, depending on what is in the water, if it's oily substances, it will go to the top. Or what we've managed to do somehow is to get these long chains to interlink, or to actually connect to each other. So what we're able to do here is to create more of a net. And that just effectively makes our product much more effective in this instance. This is a patent that we have filed reasonably while, and then we've just got all of our European approvals literally a month ago for this. So to give just a very quick demonstration, shale gas industry, specifically in America, there is a lot of flowback water and processed water being created by your fracking process. And as you can see there, how we treat that water basically with all of the impurities sitting to the bottom, recycling water out of plastic recycling industry, the same effect, and then the paper industry. So in terms of iron removal out of your wastewater, your chemical oxygen demand levels of all of these, and as you can see, without any micro filters or membranes or energy needed, we can actually already get a very reasonable result. Just some of the actual results here in South Africa in terms of sewage water, dairy effluent, industrial effluent, and then specifically Sasol, which is also the petrochemical company making fuel out of coal here in South Africa. We've been the only company so far that could actually clean their after flue gas water very, very effectively for them. Just a very quick success story. This is the biggest dairy group in South Africa. They produce a lot of butter, creams, yogurts, cheeses, and so forth. This is a plant, a very simple plant that we've installed for them. This is their before readings, after readings. And even South Africa is catching up, where the government is now putting heavy penalties on people that are actually disposing of effluent water untreated. So obviously, all the big companies are now starting to do something significant in terms of treating the water before they release it back into the environment. And as you can see, their history before we got involved, where the chemical oxygen demand of the effluent, I can maybe, you know, I'm not a scientist, but the more impurities you have in the water, the higher the chemical oxygen demand, or the more oxygen you actually take out of the water that you put it into. So, and as you can see, for the last 2 years, we've actually kept this, we've improved this from about 14,000 to below 400. In South Africa, water is considered completely safe if the chemical oxygen demand is below 800. So we are producing water that they can release at basically half of what is required. Then to talk specifically on our new technology, it's called rapid elimination technology. Worldwide, micropollutants are busy building up in water. That is typically hormones that is given to livestock, to chickens, you know, to make them grow faster, to produce food faster. Drugs, all kinds of drugs that ends up in water. And by drugs, I mean all kinds of drugs, medicines, all kinds of prescriptions that people take. Most of these cannot be actually effectively be removed with even with RO or your finest membranes that you get cannot stop this. All your pesticides, all your herbicides, all of this is ending up in water, and it's starting to build up at an alarming rate. And as His Excellency has mentioned, I think the world is ready to get to a point again where we cannot continue poisoning ourselves and then, you know, poison the water and poison the planet, because more and more of these sicknesses, I think, you know, will come to the fore if we do not stay healthy and if we don't keep our planet healthy, and specifically then the water of this planet. So what is rapid elimination technology? Fenton was a scientist that came out with a wonderful formula where specifically iron and peroxide, hydrogen peroxide were put together, and you would then create hydroxyl radicals. The hydroxyl radical is the OH without a charge here in the end. There was just a problem with this whole formulation in terms of the amount of iron sludge that was created, as well as you had to get the pH of your water at below 3. So you had to put a lot of acid into the water. And what we are managing to do is we have basically overcome all of the limitations that was previously put on creating of hydroxyl radicals. So to put it into perspective, currently worldwide, the most effective oxidation agent being used is chlorine dioxide, and that's got a redox potential of 1.57, and then hydrogen peroxide, then ozone, and hydroxyl radicals is at a magnitudes better at 2.80. What advanced oxidation means is all impurities in your water actually gets oxidized by oxygen. So you are left with something that just gets completely changed from being a poison or an effluent or an impurity to something that is oxidized and put completely harmless. You end up with very, very little residue. So instead of having a 20% brine that you would typically have with a membrane system, you now have less than 1% of residue possibly. So the effect and the application of this is enormous in terms of odors, the complete removal of micropollutants, and the removal of bacteria and all kinds of microbes from your water. So application will go from refineries, sugar mills, paper mills, soil remediation, municipal wastewater, breweries, everywhere. A typical sulfide test that was done shows that with our products, the contamination was sitting at about 2,700 milligrams per liter. With the best oxidating agent before our stuff, they could get it down to 1,800. And after we have now treated it with our RET, it gets to below detection levels. So to physically demonstrate removals of micropollutants, out of the oil industry, you will have benzene, toluene, ethyl benzene, pesticide, herbicides. Some of these words I can't even pronounce, but you can see them there on the screen. Pharmaceuticals, all kinds of medicines, and so forth. And we then specifically took a sample of what we would consider really, really clean water coming out of Germany from the Hamburg Municipal Water Treatment Facility. And as you can see, all of these oil residents, pesticides, and all of these things here on the left was still found in this water after treatment. As I've said, you cannot effectively, there's no method to get rid of micropollutants currently. So there you can see the micropollutants. We then subsequently went and treated it with our RET treatment. And as you can see, we effectively reduced almost all of these by 100%. We then, just before COVID, last year also did some tests with General Electric and specifically Baker Hughes for contaminants in the petrochemical industry. And as you can see, all of these petrochemicals was also reduced by 100% after the treatment with our rapid elimination technology. Soil remediation, contaminated soils, tests that were done. Once again, you can see before treatment, and then after treatment, we basically got all of these to non-detectable levels. And then, of course, the big culprit in the oil industry, MTBEs, we reduced by more than 90% out of the soil. And then I think also a little bit closer to home, we have been working with an Italian company called Ergofito. Ergofito has been heavily involved in developing very specific bacteria that can convert all kinds of contaminants, into less harmful stuff. So specifically in Kuwait, there was a huge drive to start cleaning up the heavy hydrocarbons that has contaminated, I believe, or I'm told, maybe a third of Kuwait is currently contaminated. So Ergofito has done a lot of tests with the Kuwaiti oil company and the University of Kuwait, and we have now started selling a lot of our M3T products, specifically to Ergofito, that gets used in Kuwait for the remediation of the heavy hydrocarbons and of the oil contamination. So effectively what happens is our product, because of the non-toxicity, gives this bacteria the ability to penetrate deeper, to actually emulsify much better into the water, and it now eats all of these heavy hydrocarbons, turns it into topsoil, and the moment there's no more heavy hydrocarbons left, it literally just disappears. So it leaves no contamination, it leaves no problem with residue whatsoever. And as you can see, within a period of 45 days, actually, or 60 days, from 29,000 down to 7,600, a very, very effective cleaning. Just to demonstrate the ease of application, you know, not necessarily any fancy equipment needed, no heavy washing and all of that. Literally just water, bacteria, and marine 3 being sprayed out onto tilled, contaminated soil. Next steps for us for RET to do is actually oxidative scrubbing, where we are hoping to get into more practical testing, because we've done a lot of lab tests so far where we can effectively eliminate all H2S gas within a 3-minute period at the biogas plant. This will also may be very helpful in the degassing of containers, the degassing of tanks, and so forth, where, you know, volatile gases might be a problem and you need to degas these containers. We will hopefully start in the Netherlands, specifically in the port of Rotterdam, pretty soon with some degassing trials on a pilot scale. Some of our sales prospects in Europe, people that we have started talks with, and people that we are hoping to do further tests with. Some of them we've started in the labs. As you can see, most of them in the wastewater and effluent water treatment business. Just a very quick thing, I know this is not about firefighting, but to demonstrate, typically we have done, under the leadership of Gresham International in the UK, one of the more respected firefighting institutes in the world, we have asked them to do comparative studies of what will happen in firefighting if you treat water with our product. And as you can see on this top little photograph here, normal water, you can see the surface tension of that water. It stays in a droplet. Then with some other water softness, you can see it's looking a bit better, a little bit flatter, but still a droplet. But with our specific firefighting product, it is a complete wetting of that surface, and the product is basically no more droplet. The water has just wetted a much bigger surface. So we tested against foam and powder and all of the other alternative firefighting methods. And as you can see, in a car fire, we've put that car fire out in 12 seconds versus 31 seconds with conventional stuff. Burning tires, we could put out in 5 seconds versus 22 seconds. And then oil and fuel, for the very first time, they could put out a fuel or an oil fire with normal water. Then when normally they got to use powder or foam, and then with straw and with timber. I've got a very long video here, but I don't think we have enough time where they physically demonstrate all of these tests. Should anybody be interested, we can forward that on. Then just in bottle washing, specifically in South Africa, the moment we treat the water, we can actually reduce the washing temperature from 80 degrees to 65 degrees centigrade. So it's a very nice saving in energy. And also we could halve the caustic soda for cleaning from 2% to 1%. And in spite of the lower temperature and only half of the chemicals, we still managed to improve their rewash rate from 4.5% to 0.69%. So a massive improvement in the effective cleaning of their bottles at lower temperature and half of the chemicals. A little bit about Aeroponic. As His Excellency mentioned, I sit on the board of Aeroponic. Aeroponic has, in the last 5 years, gone from strength to strength, won numerous awards. Aeroponic has got the ability to remove oil from water up to 1 part per million. And then a big breakthrough at the moment is onboard marine scrap water treatment, where the law is changing worldwide. All big ships will have to effectively treat their scrubber water, and we have got a system that we retrofit on ships, a very small system. It cleans that water so that you can actually dump it back into the ocean, and you are sitting with dry effluent cakes that you can then safely dispose of when you get back to harbor. some treatment of leachate, process water treatment for the food industry, and then of course industrial water recycling to drinking water standard. Here is our engineer Ulrich with Princess Victoria of Sweden, Prince Philippe from Luxembourg. This was the latest state-of-the-art water treatment installation in Morbilinga in Sweden, where they completely recycle heavy industrial effluent water back to drinking water standard. And as you can see here, it's just some of the worldwide awards that Aeroponic has won. Aeroponic specifically specializes in hardware installations for water treatment. Then to the main part of our presentation, the effect that our product will have on agriculture. Typically in South Africa, to now do a typical orchard, let's just say an orange orchard or vineyards or any other fruit, they use about 800 liters of water per hectare to do an effective spray so that all of your leaves get covered. But as you can see, that surface tension of the water prevents proper leaf wetting or leaf coverage. With the #1 wetting agent currently available called Weteq, you can reduce the amount of water from 800 liters to 330 liters, and you get about a 45% leaf coverage. You can see a better leaf coverage here. But with Marine 3 at 150 liters of water, a massive water saving, we got a 95% leaf coverage. So as I try to explain, the simplicity sometimes is what is the key. So essentially all we do is we manage to cover more of the leaf, or 95% of the leaf versus 45%. So whether you now want to kill insects or pesticides on this leaf, you would much rather want 95% coverage, and it will leave no chance of something surviving versus a 45%. And if you can do all of this with less than half of the water, the more the better. So what we then also say is, if you now start giving something like a foliar feed, which is a fertilizer on the leaves, I would much rather put that fertilizer down on the leaf when I know that the foliar feed or the fertilizer reaches 95% of this tomato that will absorb this fertilizer into the leaf. And that brings us to where we believe a very, very big breakthrough in agriculture will still come. It's still at its infancy shoes. In order for us to have gotten the very first meeting with John Preston at MIT, as you can imagine, everybody in the world would love to meet with John and, you know, discuss their innovations and ideas with him. He's an extremely busy man. So he gave us a challenge, and he said, if we could mix 50 grams of ultra fine coal with 50 milliliters of water, and we can manage to get that into suspension, you will see us. And this was the actual sample bottle that we prepared. So what we managed to do with Marine 3 is, because we break the surface tension of the water so much, we can micro mill stuff to a much finer level than anybody else can with normal water. Some people might achieve the same amount of fineness of materials, but then you need very expensive processes and glycol and oils and kind of things. We can do it with normal water. So to show the physical demonstration, typical lime as being used in the agricultural sector does not emulsify in water, and it doesn't stay emulsified in water. It very, very quickly, within seconds, sink to the bottom. So if you need to apply this over a hectare of agriculture, you find that in some patches you now have too much, and in some other areas you do not have the same amount. So what we managed to do is we literally micro mill the lime to such a level that we get a complete suspension of this lime into the water. So when it now gets given to your plants on and so forth, you get an absolutely equal distribution of your fertilizer or your lime over this very specific area. This is just some of the initial tests that we've done. We now add our own extra fertilizers. And as you can see on the left-hand side, where our product was put onto the leaves versus the right-hand side, it is actually completely outgrown even the rows. You can't even distinguish the rows again. the effect on beans, for instance, is enormous. So once again, all we're doing here is no magic wand. We are just micro milling the food much finer, and we are making the food available to all the stomata on the leaf. I always like, as a non-scientist and as a non-agriculturalist, to actually explain that, you know, if you were to give an orange to a baby, the baby's mouth is only this big. It will never be able to eat the orange. But if you could break that orange down into the smallest little particles in that orange, the baby will eat that orange much, much easier. And this is essentially all we do. This is the simplicity. We make the food smaller and finer, and we make the food available to all the little mouths or all the little stomata or intakes on the plant. So this is just some of the effects on sunflowers, the effect on wheat. Just to mention, on our first round, we actually improved the wheat yield from 9.5 tons per hectare to 11.5 tons per hectare. Then to move on to the CO2 technology, we have actually worked very closely now with Professor Charles Whitehead, who was the head of the agricultural agricultural sector at the University of Johannesburg, and we have focused specifically on the effect of CO2 on plant growth and plant health. Just to mention that the amount of CO2 currently available at plant level is about a quarter of what it was 2,000 years ago. We currently at 500 parts per million of CO2 at leaf level, where previously it was at around about 2,000. So plants are not getting enough CO2 to properly photosynthesis, or to do a proper photosynthesis process. And CO2 is, of course, oxygen for plants. So if we can put more CO2 into direct contact with the plants, you know, we could just see enormous results. And just to show you guys, the first test that was done specifically at the university with lettuce and then with tomatoes, you can see the pictures here. And to our amazement, we also found that the fruit firmness, in other words, you actually get much healthier plants. Tomatoes, for instance, people worldwide these days tend to harvest all your fruits and all your vegetables too early. They do that because if you harvest fruit early, you actually get a firmer skin and a firmer, a longer shelf life. In other words, if you wait till the fruit is properly ripe, you've got a very limited shelf life, because that fruit will go bad a lot quicker. I can just mention that about a third of all the food produced currently in the world is going to waste because of shelf life. It doesn't last long enough, and people throw it away. So the effect on fruit firmness, as you can see, if you can put adequate amount of CO2 onto the leaves, apologies, the way we do it is we get the CO2 into the water, and we then do a micro spray, like I've demonstrated with the dust. Enough CO2 enriched water, where we've got, of course, now the ability to put CO2 into the water. We spray that for 30 seconds, 4 times a day onto the leaves. So the plants now absorb a lot more of CO2. Microscopic photographs at the university proves that the amount of stomata on the leaves itself actually doubles if plants get enough CO2 from the very early stages. And the fact that they then have double the amount of stomata gives them the ability to just absorb fertilizer and nutrients that much better out of the soil or out of water. And then, as you can see, the effect on fruit firmness, you could effectively harvest tomatoes now 3 weeks later than normally done in South Africa, where you've now given the tomato a proper chance to do what nature intended, and that was to create a very nice tasting sweet tomato with a proper sugar conversion, and the skin of that tomato is still double the strength of a tomato harvested 3 weeks earlier with not sufficient CO2 given to the plant. And then shelf life, we actually find that we, in most instances, almost double the shelf life of the vegetables in the fruits. In other words, where they would normally last a week or 10 days after being plucked, they can now actually do 2 weeks and even longer. So this, I believe, has got a massive, massive impact specifically, you know, also in your areas where it's a lot warmer, a lot more humid, and you will see that vegetables and fruits actually will tend to wilt and go bad, I think, a lot sooner. And this could have a massive impact specifically for hydroponics and in hothouses and so forth in the warmer regions. This is actual plants that was done on hydroponic systems here in South Africa, where we've done the CO2 treatment. As you can see here on the left, this almost looks like it's been photoshopped. These plants, because they're getting enough CO2, as you can see, they look exactly the same. The one looks like the other, and you can also see the health of these plants. So just on the top here, without the CO2 treatment, typically in the same period, you would have 20 leaves on a typical lettuce. With enough CO2 treatment, you get 25 leaves, and that is just, you know, your increase in yield without the added benefits of the shelf life and of course the fruit firmness. And then celery, you can see physically how you accelerate and grow a lot faster when you give these plants enough CO2. In an aeroponic system, so what happens is aeroponics, this is a system or containerized system where you have all of these plants in a container, so you leave nothing to chance here. There's no influences from the outside. You're not weather dependent. You cannot have these plants contaminated by insects or pesticides or any sicknesses, because everything is fully controlled. And as you can see, we managed to reduce the grow days from 28 days to 22 days. So in 6 days saving, we still managed to get the kilograms per square meter per year increased from 172 kilograms to 254 by just giving the plants enough CO2 inside these aeroponic systems. And then literally models that we are working on full-on containerized farming, also very specific to the hotter regions. I'll show this little video where you will also be able to fully control this whole system, even from your telephone. You will have nothing left to the outside. And I can just very, very quickly show what typically this will look like. And you can add to these. It's a plug and play system. You can expand, and this will be to typically grow all of your vegetables that you cannot grow in a vertical hydroponic system, stuff like potatoes and those kinds of vegetables. This is what this was specifically designed for, so that you actually can cover the whole spectrum of everything that you need to grow. I will get to that one in a second. If you don't mind, I just promised Jacques I'll send him a warning. There we go. So what we've done specifically in beef, we have also containerized where they grow barley, specifically for the cattle in a container, where we treat this barley also with our plant booster products. We get a 20% increase in yield that gets fed to the cattle, as well as we put some of our product in the drinking water of the cattle. By drinking the softer water, the water penetrates the food that is in the cow's stomach much better. It breaks down the food quicker, and it allows for the enzymes inside the cow's stomach to physically absorb the food better. So by eating the same amount of food, we actually got these cows to pick up on average 300 grams per day extra weight, just by a better food conversion. This was a study specifically done in New Zealand by Fonterra. Fonterra is the 4th biggest dairy company, I think, currently in the world. And as you can see here, I just need to get my mouse. As you can see, the milking area on our farm was 126 hectares versus the benchmark. This benchmark group is 21 other top farms, and we actually improved the cows that was milked weighed on average 445 kilos versus the benchmark 470. The cows were a little bit smaller. The season's rainfall was 500 mils versus 869, almost half the rainfall. And then the nitrogen applied. The big problem in New Zealand is the amount of nitrogen currently being leaked into the drinking water in New Zealand and into their water table. So it's become a very sensitive issue. Mike managed to already reduce his nitrogen applied from an average of 185 for the benchmark to 151. And then the thing that just blew everybody away was the milk solids per hectare was 1,852 versus 1,283. In other words, his cows gave 497 kilograms of milk solids versus the benchmark of New Zealand of 409. The results were so spectacular that they insisted that it is impossible for his cows to actually just give 20 or more than 20% more milk in one season. So they insisted for these tests to be redone. And as you can see here, the energy in the crop went from 126 average for the control farms to 180 megajoules energies. Apologies for that. And then also critically, the imported supplements that was needed to be given to the cows, Mike was at 525 versus the average for the other farms at 905. He could almost halve the amount of additional supplements that he had to import. The latest report that we received, as you can see there, we got it on the 31st of August this year after they've retested. If you look again now, and I've just highlighted a couple, this was the benchmark now in the middle. So Mike was at 151 nitrogen versus the average 187. The average is basically still at 187, but Mike has in the next year reduced his nitrogen that he had to put down on his pastures down to 25. So he is now at literally a sixth of what the rest of New Zealand is doing. His milk solids per hectare improved from 1,852 to 1,938. He even got a better result. And then the average milk solids per cow per day also improved even further. And the pasture and crop harvesters, his energy levels in his crop improved even further now with year 2. And then imported supplements, as you can see, he actually reduced it even further. And this just confirms now again that we had a massive, massive impact on these dairy cows specifically. And I'm very proud to say that even Dairy New Zealand, we've now caught the attention of Dairy New Zealand. They're getting involved, and we are also at the point of sending our very first amount of product to Oceano, which is the second biggest operator in New Zealand, but mainly based in China. And then to talk a little bit, Jock is standing by. I can see him about Eden Green's technology. Jock is the inventor with his brother and the founder of this wonderful world-leading technology in terms of vertical hydroponics. I'm not going to say too much. I don't want to steal Jock's thunder, but it is a complete climate-proof and seasonally agnostic system. Jock will also demonstrate how his system that they've developed is by far better in terms of energy needed in hot and in extreme hot and cold technologies, temperatures by micro climatic control for each and every plant. And then to go to the next thing, 3 countries currently produce 60% of global food. 4 billion food loss due to extreme weather. So the moment you can take all of your food production and make it not weather dependent or chances of any damage due to weather, you've already got an extreme advantage. And then, as I said previously, extreme food wastage. 50% of all crop perish before they arrive at the final decision, and there's a 12% increase in global food insecurity due to COVID specifically. And then opportunities, 80% of urban food center, of all food consumed will happen in cities by 2050. And then it's a 10 billion vertical farm market value in 2025. And to physically show what Jock has managed to do, you need 99% less land farming. More importantly, in dry areas, you need 98% less water and 99% less sunshine dependent because of latest state-of-the-art technology, and basically zero food waste. And you typically get 11 to 13 more harvests per annum than you will out of traditional servings.
Hello,
Rose,
Mr. Andre.
we've lost Andre.
Hello, Mr. Andre, you are there?
Okay.
Hold on,
Dita,
I think...
can you contact Andre?
I'm busy with that.
Thank you. A pretty impressive presentation, I have to say, coming across. It would be great if we get Andre back. Andre, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Can't see him.
Andre?
Put your mic on. Put your mic on.
Mr. Andre, can you hear us?
Yes, but you need to unmute, Andre.
Yes, sir.
Maybe he should use his super surfactant to get back on.
or the flocculant.
Then we can coagulate all of us together. And
A whole new world.
it's stunning. You know, I mean, we think we can do things better
Rose,
than the nature.
over to
on.
you, please.
Yes. Hi, Mr. Jax.
Hello, good morning. 2:30 a.m. here in Dallas, Texas.
Well, welcome, Jax.
Should we carry on?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Jock. I just got the mouse to work. You know, it's Murphy's Law in South Africa. First the internet have a glitch, and then my mouse just didn't want to work. But you know, I know Jock to be a very humble guy. I can also just mention, I think, a little bit of background specifically, guys. You know how Eden Greens was formed and started, specifically when Jock and his brother, you know, once was in a village. And, you know, they were handing out food to lesser fortunate children. And I noticed this little boy that was not eating, but actually putting the food in his pockets. And when they asked him, but why are you not eating? You know, he then mentioned, but today is not his day to eat. It's his sister's day to eat, you know. And there you go, Jock. And that's how Eden Green started. They just felt compelled to do something, you know, so they've got a wonderful motive for starting this business, and I'm proud to be associated with them.
Andre, thank you so much for the intro. I really appreciate it. Yes, it's been a long time. I've known Andre for many years, and I'm glad. I'm going to show you, I believe this is the most food in the smallest footprint that you can make currently in the planet. What you're looking at and what I'm showing you is a greenhouse in Dallas, Texas. This greenhouse is about 1 acre in size. That's half a hectare. We do 200,000 plants per month in this greenhouse. So I'm going to start off, just wanted to show you the scale on the outside, 2:30 in the morning here in Dallas, Texas.
11.
Right, we're known as Eden Green Technology. As you can see, and I just want to introduce you here to our CEO, that's Eddie Bedrina.
Good morning, how are you all?
Good morning, Eddie.
Glad
Fine,
to
and
have
you?
you here. Glad to have you
Thanks
here.
for getting up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wanted to let you know who all is here, and this is Bill Hughes. It's our CFO. If there's any financial questions and those kind of things.
Nice meeting you.
And Andre just
Hello.
mentioned Eugene. Eugene is co-founder and co-inventor of the technology. Guys, let's go inside. Obviously, food safety is very important to us, and we've already scrubbed and got dressed. As you can see, we don't do this for the photos. Bill, can you tell us a bit about our food safety registrations?
Sure, absolutely. As you can see here, we have a number of certifications for food safety. One in particular is SQF, which is a U.S. and an international certification. For our first 2 audits that we completed in 2018, 2019, we scored a 99 and a 98, which are unheard of scores. But as you go through our facility today, you'll see the things that we do to make sure that the food stays safe, both from a human touch standpoint, but also from a pathogen and insect standpoint. So again, a very important aspect of our technology and also our processes that go with it.
Right, thanks. We normally have a double entry, as you can see, sealed off, some vents, keeping all the insects and things out. And just to give you an idea, it's pretty nice to go in here. It's literally like an Eden, a lot of food being produced. I'm just going to kick off and tell you guys what we see. On this side, we have a propagation area, and this propagation area is about 350 square meters. We can grow 200,000 seedlings per month in this propagation area. Something similar is going to be needed on your side. What we do here is pretty unique to us. We've got these trays, and I just want to show you what we have at the bottom. Here's an organic plug, what we call a plug. This organic plug is one of the ways that we grow in the system. And basically what you do is you take this plug, you drop it in position, and 4 weeks later you take it out. That's as easy as it is to plant it. Another medium we use is a product called Rockwool. I'm just going to take some Rockwool out here. Rockwool is actually melted rock. So it's completely inert, it's got no organic properties, and it's simply there to keep the roots in place. And that's the other plugs that we use. These seedlings are about 10 days old. It's got another 4 or 5 days to go, and then we plant it out into our system. Now in the system, we use what we call a perpetual harvest. And you'll see it in the zones that we've got. That means at any given time, there will be places where we harvest, where we clean, where we replant, and the whole process carries on. Typically what happened here was, this is for Tuesday's harvest. Here we've got a harvest that will happen on Monday. Obviously this has been harvested yesterday, being cleaned out. Here you can see the trays are already standing by for us to do our replanting when people come back to work. That's mustard, just to give you an idea. That's cilantro that we're going to plant out. Here's some collard greens. And as we move down the lines, you'll see that the plants actually get bigger and bigger. That's that progressive planting schedule that we have. I'd like to show you what's pretty unique in our system. Now, this is a green oak lettuce. We've got what we call a vine. And I want to show you the root system. Now, the root system is very unique. You get at the back, you get the nutrient roots, and at the front here we get our air roots. And the combination of the two gives us excellent taste in our product. Now, it was as easy as what I showed you now to harvest these plants, and you can see the quality of the plants There are no blemishes. These plants looks beautiful. And if I run down the line, like you can see, each panel, Bill will give you the information on each of these panels. We grow with grow lights. I'm just going to go up. It's a bit difficult for the camera to show you that. Let's run down the line. Right. I showed you the root system. We've got, and I'm going to explain the technology to you. Each one of these is called a vine. We call it a vine. And there's 36 plants on a vine. It's 18 feet tall. I'm going to take this out to get just to our climate control area. So we control two zones. First off, we control the root zone. That's our nutrients running down. And we control the temperatures on the root zones for a number of reasons. First reason would be we get our oxygen levels up. It keeps pathogens out if your temperatures are controlled. We keep our temperatures at a consistent 65. And if I do the metric version of that, I think it's about 19 degrees, 18.5 to 19 degrees. And it stays that way consistently regardless of what area we're in. If we go to the Middle Eastern areas where it's very hot, it will still stay at 65. Any plant that the root zone is kept cool can handle a lot more heat. The second thing that we control that's very unique to our system and actually very unique to vertical farming is our energy efficiency is a lot better than any of the other systems. And the reason for that is if we zoom in there or just go down, you'll see there's a little hole and there's another little hole. Now, those two little orifices that you see there blow air out or controlled air onto the plant, this plant and the one next door. And that means that we can control the temperatures, the humidity, the carbon dioxide levels for this specific plant or this specific species that we're growing in. That gives us the unique ability that we can grow in adverse heat conditions or cold conditions should it be. All our whole system is automated. We've got sensors throughout the greenhouse that reads what the temperatures, humidity, CO2 levels are, and it automatically adjusts to give us the recipe that we want. Now, one of the unique features of our system is these nutrients run 24/7. It's not like other hydroponic systems. We keep it running, and the reason we keep it doing is our night growth phase, which is the sugaring phase. We've got a lot more oxygen in our nutrients. And I'm going to quickly talk, let Eddie tell you about what happened with us and Walmart. We did tests on the taste profile. Eddie.
So, with really what it comes down to is we want to be customer centric, and for your customers, your people, it comes down to taste, right? All this technology is great, but if it doesn't produce great tasting food that your customers and your people will love, then it doesn't really matter. So we've done tests with Walmart, and with Walmart, who is the biggest grocer slash provider here in the United States, these plants and some of the lettuce that we gave them scored the highest ever on any of their produce in terms of taste with a customer base and with just taste testing. So we know that one, it's consistent, like Jacques was saying, it's reliable, it's safe, as Bill was saying, but it's also nutritious and tastes great as well. So that's what we're really focused on, is all four of those things: consistency, accessibility, safety, and then taste.
Thanks a lot. That helps a lot. As we move on down the line, obviously, as you can see, there's a lot of food being created. I'm going to let Bill take over for us and explain to us exactly what you're looking at. This is a 1 acre greenhouse, half an hectare. And Bill, you can take it from here.
Sure. This greenhouse is about an acre. It's the equivalent of 33 acres of U.S.
Andre, I think you lost the feed. Can you see us?
Yes, we can see you. We're perfect.
Yes, Mr. Jack.
All right. So just to repeat, this is about a 1 acre facility. It's the equivalent of, produces the equivalent of about 33 farmland acres here in the U.S. for open farming. We'll produce about 900,000 pounds, which is about 400,000 kilograms of leafy greens. Now that is just the leaves themselves. In the U.S. market, it's more of a leaf market. If your home markets are more whole plant or plants with root or without root, obviously it's a far greater output. For us, that'll turn into, that equates to about $4.3 million of revenue. But I think what's important is the efficiencies that this, that our greenhouse technology brings. So as an example, we use only about 1% of the water of a typical outdoor farm. The water's completely circulated. We use, in a year, we'll use 90,000 gallons, which is the equivalent of about 2 homes here in the United States. Also, with our the fact that we use the sun, and we do have supplemental lighting to help on the grow cycle for the plants as the seasons change. But again, versus other vertical technologies or other indoor technologies, our greenhouse effect, again, uses the entire plant spectrum. I believe there's some summary financials that are being provided to you or shown to you. If not, we're happy to provide you with the information. But what you'll find is that in a greenhouse, in our one module greenhouse, 62,500 square feet, we generate an operating profit in the neighborhood of $2.7 million. That's before we handle packing. Again, packing, packaging, and logistics, which is all very market specific. So again, as we work together and explore your market, we can look at things that are specific costs to your market, specific sales channels to your market. It may be that it is a for-profit venture. It could be because you're looking to feed a certain group of people within your countries. Again, that's up to the customer. But we can customize our modeling, financial modeling, as well as our production modeling to match what you need for your customer in your country.
Thanks a lot. That tells you a bit. Yes, the lighting is a bit better, and you can see one of these panels that we're looking at, just as on a scale, you can see Eddie and Bill standing there, and I'm walking back. That's about a panel. So each of these panels got about 4,000 plants on them, and I'm going to just give you a quick look down the greenhouse. It's a pretty big greenhouse. This replaces in the region of about 200 acres. So 1 acre of this replaces 200 acres in open field farming. How do we do this? We've already said that we've got the nutrients, and if you look up, you'll see there's lines at the top, right at the top. It falls down the vines like a waterfall effect. That also helps with the oxygen levels that we have for this growing method. And then we get to the nutrient side. Now, these are our nutrient tanks. We've got a dosing unit that pulls in from zone to zone to zone, each zone with a solenoid system. And this works typically like a hospital IV. So if you look down there, you'll see it's typically like IVs. We put a recipe in, and it will immediately adjust to what we want, what chemicals we want inside, what surfactants, and it will adjust the pH levels as well. So I'm going to open up, everything is security. I'm going to show you the equipment on the outside. Those nutrients that you looked at comes in, this is a tank below grade. If you look down there, it's about a 2,000 gallon tank. And it runs through a system. We've got filter systems on this side. We've got redundant pumps that if one pump should fail, we've got a second pump that can kick in immediately. We've got heat exchangers on the other side. Typically on a greenhouse that we do in a different country, all of this will be containerized. And everything you see, all the orange boxes that's down here, that's the automation side of it. So we'll put a recipe in. That recipe will be followed by our computer system or our control system, and it will adapt the inside nutrients exactly to what we want. Temperatures, at the speed, the flow rate, all of those kind of things. And on the other side, we've got our air handling unit. Now, our air handling unit is everything on the air side. One of the major advantages of what we do here is we actually catch the condensate in these air handlers. And if we have a humidity level of about 80% and up naturally, we don't take in any municipal water to grow. We use just the condensate of these air handlers to grow. Our water consumption is extremely low. I know that most vertical farming tells you that they've got about a 5% of natural open land farming. We've calculated ours out to be, depending on what we grow, to be closer to 2% of what you'd normally use. So we use very, very little water in nutrients. Actually, you cannot grow with less. We only use what the plants transpire. Coming in on the inside, I'm just going to stop quickly and show you typically. Now, in the greenhouse, we've got sensors. There's in total just over 100 sensors in this greenhouse. That reads everything that we want to know: the temperatures, the humidity levels, the carbon dioxide levels, and the equipment will automatically adjust. I'm quickly going to stop here just to show you. This is basil. We grow basil, a lot of herbs, and I'm going to run down and show you a lot of herbs on that side as well. Food safety is extremely important to us. We've got a system here. It's a UV sterilizing system that we utilize for our nutrients. These bars that you see there at the back, that's UV lights. It's about 1,800 watts. About 90 times stronger than your swimming pool UV sterilizing system, and that keeps our root zones clean. I'm going to walk down the line. This is an R&D greenhouse, so we're constantly testing. We're busy with 25 different varietals of Johnny seeds, Enzazaden from Netherlands. What you're looking at here is a mint plant. Now that mint plant's been in the system for about 9 months. We cut it back every 2 weeks, and we get well over 100 grams of that one mint plant every week. There's some thyme at the bottom.
Can I just come in briefly? This is outstanding, and you and your colleagues turning up at this time is just wonderful. It's for our 40th Majlis session. This has got to be one of the best. I'm interrupting because at this part of the world, we have a timeline involving another use of the day. And I need to ask if we can hand over to Andre to complete, as His Excellency would like to add a few words. But we need to leave you in Texas and get back to Muscat. But you have been outstanding, and I'd like to thank you very much, and your colleagues, Jacques.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Over to you, please, Andre.
Doc, Bill, Eddie, Eugene, thank you guys. We really, really appreciate the fact that you got up so early. Thank you. And I mean, I've said it a million times. I am really proud to be associated with you guys. Thank you for actually putting the cherry on top of my presentation. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Guys.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andre and Mr. Jacques and his colleagues for an amazing greenhouse tour. So may we proceed with the question and answer portion. And may we start with His Excellency Khamis Al-Kiyumi, His Excellency.
Thank you very much. First of all, today's presentation, it was about quality of life, improvement of the affluent management, dust control, even oil and gas problems. And then also we talk a lot about the green houses, hydroponic and water and aeroponic. And also the effluent from CO2 to offset that. However, one of the very interesting things we took from this today's session, CO2 is used in hydroponic industry or agriculture to improve the yield and to improve the shelf life. We are in mushroom business, and we know how critical is shelf life is important for any fresh product. In other hand, also offset the CO2 is very important to get better environment. So today, Andre have enlightened us with a lot of ideas, a lot of issues. I found, Andre, that one of the business they have done is also what's so-called bioenergy. And maybe bioenergy now with the electrical car and also with the solar car, this will have big challenge. Do you like to address anything about this? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words, Your Excellency. I can just mention that when I was in the financial market still, you sometimes got to talk about the successes, and sometimes people get you to talk about some of the other stuff. So what we did essentially, I did the very first what they would call a project identification note, for Africa at the CC, the carbon credit thing in the United Nations. So I'm proud to say I did the first one for Africa, and it was specifically on establishing bio plantations in Africa and then converting specifically palm oil and jatropha oil into biofuels. And we did a couple of projects in Guinea, and we started in Mozambique and so forth, and we put in about $6 million into Guinea, and it was just as we started to produce the very first biofuel in Africa at a viable scale. We had a coup, and they arrested all our people. They spent 6 months in jail for the fact that we actually used ethanol to produce the biofuel out of the oil, and they then claimed that it was actually methanol being used for that drug production to go into Europe. But in any case, I think you are 100% right. With the future changing, one needs to be adaptable, and one needs to try and read these trends early enough. I think a lot of times, we tend to get comfortable in what we have in our surrounds. And specifically me, I need to sit down sometimes and spend some time and then try and foresee what will happen, not just to me, but to the world and to technology 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and so forth. And I can see you have clearly done that in terms of where is the world going, what is going to happen, and so forth. So I think a lot of focus will come not just on food production, but also of production of, let's just say, for instance, jatropha plants and all of other oil producing plants to never, because I've done extensive studies on it, never to completely replace diesel or oil, but to be a supplement. If you add, for instance, a 5% biofuel to normal fuel, the improvement is much more than 5%. I think that is typically the kind of things that one should look at, maybe out of that perspective, and focus on how do we improve the environment going forward. If that answers that more or less. Sorry, I took a long time, Mike. I'll keep it short.
Thank you very much, His Excellency and Mr. Andre. Mr. Saleh, please.
Yeah, good afternoon to all of you, and good evening and morning to those who are on the other sides of the world. Well, thank you, Mr. Abu Abdullah, for inviting me for this. Thank you, Andre. It's a very amazing presentation, and thanks to the guys in Texas for showing us the vertical farming technology, using your technology also. I'm Saleh Al-Shamfari. I'm the CEO of Oman Food Investment, leading the largest food production consortium in the country, as well as part of the region. We are focusing currently in looking at vertical farming as an option for increasing more fruit, more vegetables to the local market, as well as to the neighboring market. So we'd love to see more of your technology and get more information how to apply it, maybe to combine it with the Texan sort of technology, South African technology, to see the viability of setting up a vertical farm here in Oman, because we're on the verge of discovering and investigating other types and major types of vertical farming in the country. Yes, I think whatever said today is very amazing, and I think it's worth investigating. However, what it's end up to at the end of the day, it's the cost, the unit cost on the overall would have to be sort of looked at. So I'm also interested in looking at the cost side of it and how that cost would impact the saleability of the product toward the end of the day. I think it's worth looking at, and whatever said is quite amazing. I'm really glad to have heard you and have learned a lot today. But I think it would be more interesting maybe for you to work with other institutions here in Oman. I'm talking about the agriculture side and the food and agri, the dairy production, as well as poultry production and vegetable and fruit production is an area where we fit more. And maybe because we have Dr. Mohammed Al-Raziqi and Dr. Mohammed Al-Abri with us here from the university, maybe we should be looking at the R&D part of it to see what fits for Oman and how we can later on really take it from incubation side to full-fledged commercial production. Thank you very much for giving me the chance, and good day for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you for that valuable comments. I'm sure we will follow up, and what we typically do, and Dieter is busy with that for us, is just a very short questionnaire just to get a better understanding of typical pricing and typical market conditions in Oman. And the moment we have that, Bill in Texas and the team there will prepare a complete cost breakdown, financial model, projections, all of those things that you need.
Very good, very good. So we will be very much interested in looking at a similar size, what is there in Texas. So to fit, so this is exactly what we're looking for nowadays. And also a better use of all other effluents, and looking at the certification side, whether this is certified as organic or not. I mean, something that we're also interested in looking at. Thank you very much, Andre.
Fantastic. If I may be so bold, it would also be nice if there is some questions that we might have to specific conditions regarding the agriculture to somebody from your department. If you could maybe point us to just, somebody that can help us should we need some information. I mean, I don't want to bug you, with smaller detail, but it would really be much appreciated if I can direct just certain questions that we might have, regarding typical yields, typical weather conditions, typical things, so that we make sure that we have very reliable information in order to provide you with the best possible financial model. I would really appreciate if you can point us to somebody in your department that could actually help us just to provide some basic information.
What I'm doing here, I'm just writing my email, so you can get salih@omanfood.com, so you can communicate and send me the information, the data, the presentation, then I'll let somebody communicate with you. So you got in the chat room, you will find the email coming from my side. So that's me, salih@omanfood.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Saleh and Mr. Andre. May we call on Mr. Mohammed Al-Raziqi? He has a question. Mr. Mohammed.
Thank you so much, Andre, for your nice presentation. It's really nice to have such technology here in Oman, and especially we are expanding the food sector and food production. And I'm sure the technology, it's a useful technology, but there are the main questions of economic of investments and the scope of that. But if I go back to the production, because Engineer Saleh is here as well, and he also thank you for introducing me to the speaker. My question, because you mentioned about the dairy, and the dairy it's a big investment here in Oman, because now we have a Mazoon Dairy Company, and they are expanding well in the sector of food production and food security. There's an expansion in this sector, but when you mention about the technology, the RT technology and water purification, usually in dairy we reuse the water. because we know that the feeding of water is expensive and we have scarce resources of water in the region, in the Middle East. But for production of milk, that could be fine because we are feeding animals. And I think that's a success story, as you mentioned in your presentation. But my second part, have you tried on dairy products, including cheese and ice creams and different types of dairy products, and how the water quality will matter in terms of production? Because as I was actually a production supervisor in SQU for a dairy plant for 6 consecutive years, we usually test the hardness of water. And the hardness, it plays a major role in production because the overall quality will be dependent on the water hardness from minerals content. So, I mean, I don't know if you tried the use of this water into production in terms of dairy products, not only milk with pasteurization, but with dairy products. And that's my question, because usually it depends on minerals, and the minerals, it plays a major role in terms of dairy products. This is my first question. My second question is about, I don't know about the technology. Actually, it's a very useful technology, and I'm sure it could play a major role in terms of providing water for food sector and for irrigation, especially with the plant, as Engineer Saleh now is mentioning about the aeroponics and hydroponic system. But I don't know about the environmental impacts of using surfactant, because you know usually surfactant are chemical additives where it plays a major role with the two parties of structural input. So I don't know about the environmental impact of using this surfactant, and is there any accreditation of using such a technology into food sector, especially in production of food, including dairy and meat canneries? Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. I think to start with question number one, as you might have noticed, we are currently doing the water purification for Clover, which is the biggest milk and cheese and producer here in South Africa. So we are treating the effluent plant, the water that's coming directly out of the factory. So, you know, once again, you will know better than I, but I'll try and answer it to you. Sometimes, depending on what they manufacture, you know, the water can differ, the effluent water and what is in the effluent water differs greatly, you know, and that obviously in any effluent treatment plant is the challenge always, you know. So what we would typically do at Clover is we would have what we would call a balancing facility or a balancing tank, where if they typically produce cheese and the pH is too low, we will put that water in, and then hopefully they do cream just a bit later or whatever, and we put all of that in a balancing tank. But as I have shown is after treatment, the before and after results is from about 12 to 14,000 COD, required COD, down to below 400. I can just mention that out of the treatment pond after treatment, that water gets sprayed directly onto the pasture for the cows that is currently walking as part of the facility, you know, just outside of town. And because Marine 3, and I'm now going into your second question, because of the fact that we have basically zero petrochemicals, ammonia, glycol, alcohol, and any of those things in our product, what we would typically do is we would add, in South Africa, class 1 drinking water contains anything up to 200 parts per million of salt. If you do our surfactant as a treatment, you up that by a maximum of 4 parts per million of salts. So to give you an indication, and the product is fully biodegradable. So within 28 days, it is, you know, completely gone in any case. So, you know, that is, I think, one of the reasons why, you know, we are actually quite unique, and why Dairy New Zealand is also now getting involved, because they have got some of the strictest rules currently in the planet for specific water table, groundwater contamination, and then pastures and field and soil in general. So, but once again, we are more than willing and open to have any testing conducted, you know, and done. You know, we are completely comfortable with any scrutiny and testing and so forth, you know, before you do any application whatsoever.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed. Mr. Alabri?
Hi, how are you guys? Thank you for the nice presentation, Andre. I have a question about the mist itself. How good is it to be used for the dairy facilities? We have temperatures reaching up to 50 degrees Celsius in the summer, and heat stress is a major downside for the dairy cattle. Reduces production, especially in smaller facilities. How feasible is it, is my question, to use your technology in smaller dairy scale production facilities? And the other question is regarding the beef example that you provided. I'm just not sure how did it work out in that example in terms of increasing the body weight by 300 grams per day, I think you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think one of my biggest frustrations today was to try and fit everything into 40 minutes. You know? So if you give me the chance, I'll keep this going till Monday. You know, so just to answer your first one on the cooling down, obviously, if you know, you don't want to wet your cows. You know, you want to create that ultra fine mist. Typically in South Africa, I mean, we don't nearly get your temperatures, but in summer, a lot of restaurants here actually put out misting systems specifically, you know, on the outside to cool down people as they eat and so forth. So you cannot afford to have ultra big droplets that wet and you know, completely get everything soaked. So what we have done is previously, specifically in chicken houses here in South Africa, for hens that lay eggs, they've got a very similar problem because they're all cooped up under those sink houses. We have used marine tree in their drinking water, and we've also used it in the cooling systems already with unbelievable results. Okay, and then to get to your second question, obviously we've also seen it with the chickens. Is we're trying to explain it, and obviously, you know, what we found is, and as I said right in the beginning, wherever water is used, we seem to have an impact, but it gets impossible for us to follow up on absolutely everything. We had studies done at the University of Pretoria specifically on chickens, but not on the cows as so much. The cows was, you know, just to look-see first of all, but it clearly shows on the chickens that because the water is now much softer that the chickens drink, the actual grains that they eat, you know, gets penetrated and wetted a lot easier and a lot quicker. So it allows for the enzymes in the stomach to break down the food more effectively. More of the food gets absorbed into the body before it, you know, obviously exits the stomach and or the actual intestines, you know. So that's why you'll see on the one slide I had two pictures of the actual dung of the cows, and you can see the difference in the color. So it shows, and if you look under a microscope, you will see that the food, after we treat it with marine tree, is better congested. There's no more whole pieces. It's much better congested. So on the chickens, we have proven that with the same body weight, we reach the same body weight for the chickens, but basically at 80% of the food. So the food conversion rate was highly improved. You know, so because cows are much more complicated, I believe they've got 4 stomachs. You know, we haven't been able to. They've done the studies on the bacteria in the first on the first tummy, and they've shown that the actual bacteria didn't get influenced badly in any way. You know, and as you've seen with the ergo phyto trials that we're doing in Kuwait, we have no negative impact on bacteria. We actually improve bacteria, you know, at the recommended dosages. It's like table salt, for instance. You know, the right amount of salt in your food tastes wonderful. If you know we're going to go and put a whole pot of salt on your food, you're obviously going to spoil it. This is very much the same with our product. You know, you should stick to the recommended dosages, and that's where you get the optimum performance.
That's really beautiful, because it would help both, of course, the dairy, the chicken, and the beef industries in such hot areas to get a higher performance, high food conversion ratio, and faster growth with the same amount of food.
Yeah, and the cooling down, for your cooling down, you literally need 0.025%. You know, the dosages are so small. You know, it's 250 parts per million in your water, and just that 250 parts per million will typically break the surface tension of water from 72, I think it gets measured in kilonewton pascals, or, you know, once again, I'm not a scientist, but it literally breaks the surface of tension from 72 down to 34. You know, the lowest water tension can go under extreme conditions, and I think in outer space is 28. You know, so we bring it very close to where it can go in terms of softness.
Thank you so much, Andre. Thanks so much.
Thanks for your questions. I appreciate it. So great questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Al-Abri and Mr. Andre. Dr. Hilal Al-Hinai, may we call on you, sir?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure listening to this fantastic presentation, and I'm pleased to know the developments that are taking place in different avenues of water utilization with a very simple technique of breaking down the surface tension that improves the efficiency of utilizing water. So it's a pleasure listening to the presentation, and I wish that you would have a successful collaboration here with our colleagues, both in the academic sector and in the application sector, such as Saleh Shanfri and the group of Oman Food Security. Thank you. Thank you for calling on me to say something.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Dr. Abu Al-Sawafi.
Yes, hello. Thank you. It's been interesting to follow up this. Thanks for His Excellency for arranging this get-togethers. I'm really inspired, and I think this is the future of food industry, not only in Oman, but probably worldwide. Thank you again for being involved in this. My sincere appreciation.
Thank you so much for the kind words. Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Haji. You were raising your hand.
Yes, I did. Well, thank you very much for the two part of presentations that you delivered. For me, the second part is more interested to me than the first part. The technology of hydroponic and the system you showed us, and for those who also maybe commented on it, I see it is fine for those who are backed by the government dollars. I mean, big projects, you know, big companies and big projects especially. I've seen more simpler and very successful setups of hydroponics and fodders systems in India, very cost effective. With this system, for example, you know, our local market, agriculture market is driven by small farmers. I can say maybe 90–95% driven by smaller farmers with very limited resources, of finance resources. What can you offer to the mass? You know, this is fine for, you know, Dr. Saleh Shanfri's maybe projects and the dairy projects, which is also a big company. But I would have loved to see something for the locals, you know, the local farmers, small farmers. I didn't see it. Thank you.
I am so happy that you asked this question. You know, this is actually sent. So if I may quickly just very quickly go back to my slideshow. I don't know if it's being shared at the moment or whether you can see it or not.
No, I can't see it.
Let me just see if I can ask to share. Let me just go back and go back. Share screen. Just 1 second, and I'm going to go back there. Share screen.
We can see it now, Andre.
You can see it now. As you remember, this was the slide I was on when I got the typical South African internet interruption, and this was the very second last slide I wanted to show you guys, was specific adaptations where we can effectively do a 1 container setup with just 1, 2, 3, 4 of these rows, specifically for your smaller farmer and specifically for the guys that need this, where we can actually provide not an acre big thing that will cost a couple of $1 million and whatever, but something that works out of a container, still with all the technology, everything of this on the inside. You know, I've actually got the complete plans, the complete drawn up. This will obviously be manufactured as cheaply as possible, but still with, you know, all of those qualities that was needed, you know, in the system. So as you can see, this is effectively, there you can see the vertical pipes and tubes, but only 4 of them, and then all being operated out of a plug and play container with your air conditioning unit just sitting on top. So this is already in planning and effectively almost already available.
Well, thank you. I mean, what I had in mind actually when what I said, you know, we have certain areas like Jabal Akhdar and Jabal Shams, Masira Island, you know, certain areas where the maximum temperature in the hottest time of the year in Oman is around 32 to 35 degrees. So it's quite pleasant temperature. There is a problem, of course, of water. So since you are based here in Oman, and it would be very nice to go around and come up with some ideas, you know, what can be done, for example, in Masira Island. You know, it's a huge island, you know, and the weather is fantastic around the year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hadji. And may we call on Mr. Simon for our last question? Mr. Simon?
Yes, thank you very much. Indeed. Thank you very much, Andre. You said 12,000 toxic chemicals, and here I'll be touching on what my colleagues and participants have already mentioned, but I'll look at it in a different way. 12,000 toxic chemicals are, you know, I mean, and 500 a year are added. And you answered that question, is anionic surfactant one of them? You said no, it is totally intoxicant.
No, ours, not the others.
Yeah. Others say the same thing as well. Thank you, Andre. Now, let me look a little bit. I'm a gourmet, I eat everything, but let me touch a little bit on the agriculture, because the spectrum of your product is immense. You see, take, for example, stabilizing dirt roads. Well, it's forbidden here. We can't add any chemicals on the roads, just to let you know. However, we have lots of produced water when we extract oil, and we're using reeds to treat that water. Maybe your system can help us. But to look philosophically at the subject, you know, a little bit at, we may be solving food security. Are we solving starvation and famine for the poor? I don't expect you to answer, but no problem.
No. Can I please? It's critical.
Or is it only for the rich? The other thing is, here we are not talking about technology. We're talking about the relationship of man with nature, of his proper existence, what he is eating. And we are pretending that we are better than the nature. The nature maybe took 100,000 years to develop what it develops, with insects, with bacteria, with fungus. And our system managed to survive with it and build up an immune system that can face it. If we go into such a clean, perfect, clinical atmosphere, where we control every molecule of CO2 and every, what is going to happen to our immune system in the long run? You see, we experience this in countries where you have rich people and poor people, like every country. You see, the rich people, they care so much about their children being clean and neat and see what they're eating and if there is fat in it. And you see the other guy, he's playing with mud and he's playing with mice and animals and his immune system, many a time, is stronger than the other guy, you know. The question is, you know, we don't know really this extra clean food, what will be the long-term impact on our health and our existence. I wanted to leave you with this philosophical existential notes rather than new development in technology. And thank you very much.
If I can have 2 minutes, I would just love to, you know, just address some stuff with you. I think critically, first of all, is I agree with you fully. Let me just, as you can see, you know, I am not the healthiest eater in the world myself to start with. And I grew up on a farm, you know, where we eat dirt. And as a child, I was playing in the mud and in the rivers and so forth. I think essentially for us, what we're trying to do is we are not trying to sanitize absolutely everything to a point where, you know, where it becomes, as you say, you know, people will then, you know, die of the common flu or of a cold. What we are trying to do essentially is just, and I agree with you fully, we cannot better nature. You know, nature has taken millions and millions of years to get to where it is. What we've realized and I've realized is that humans actually interfered with nature. And what I am trying to do with our technology is just take us back a couple of 1,000 years, 2,000 years, to just get back to water the way nature intended water to be before humans put 12,000 chemicals into that water. And I just want to give the plants enough carbon dioxide so that they once again have 4 times the amount of carbon dioxide that is available to them currently before we actually damage the ozone that was keeping all the carbon at earth level. So that's essentially what we're trying to do. I just want to give the plants clean water, and I just want to give those plants the carbon that they need. But to get to the more critical one, you will remember there was a slide where I showed how we can typically emulsify lime into water. I was recently in Dakar in Tanzania. They've got 150,000 subsistence farmers, very, very poor people that actually live off 1 to 5 hectares per farmers. Their biggest problem is the acidity of their soil. They get basically no returns or no yields on the maize or the crops that they plant. And although the biggest cement factory in Tanzania has agreed to give them all the lime that they can carry for free, their biggest problem is to get 1 ton or 2 tons of lime to their field is currently costing them $2,000 US. They do not have that in 5 years of savings. What we can do with our micronized lime in a liquid form, I can actually allow them the possibility now to treat just the root zone. There's no need to treat a whole hectare of farmland if you only need to treat the root zone, which is critical. They can effectively now use 20 liters of product. They can carry that on a bicycle. So no, our technology and what we stand for is not just for the super elite or the rich people. It actually started in Africa, and Africa and the poor people of Africa has got a lot to do with that.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Simon and Mr. Andre. His Excellency Kamis Al-Kiyumi. Hi, sir.
Yes, hi, how are you? Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Rose, and thanks for everyone. So far, to summarize what we have discussed today was very interesting topic. Most of the issues are needed here in Oman. We have a big mine industry, which have a lot of dust. So dust control is really demanded here. Then we have also contamination in the oil water. So removing the oil from the water is also needed in big time in Oman. The demand for food in different way is very much needed in the area. Hydroponic, aeroponic, increasing the yield in the per square meter, increasing the shelf life of product is all needed. So I would say that this is just little which I can summarize from this morning session. So far, a lot of good ideas have been suggested from the questions and from the discussion. And I think we had a very good session, a very important one. And thanks to Majlis Khonji, Sheikh Khalil Al-Khonji, and also Rose, and you, Andre, and your associate in Texas. And thanks for everyone. Thank you.
Once again, thank you for listening to me and putting time aside to listen to me. I really, really appreciate it. And I just hope it was worth your while. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andre. Excellent. Well done.
Thank
Bye, Danke, Munia.
Thank you, everyone, for attending today's session. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you. Good day. Good day.
See you, Michelle. See you, Mr.
Keep
Kelly.
safe, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.